big, but it's one of those, as you can hear from that song, and there's most of the songs on that record are very transcending, like they're very visual, like James Bond songs are. It's very prone to imagination, very visual, like what's the word I'm looking for? Cinematic.
Cinematic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. So I want to start by welcoming everybody back to Tech News Around the whole damn world and a happy Wednesday wherever you happen to be. And I want to start off today by calling out, let's get Fatin and Dr. Francine Hardaway up here on the stage, because it just ain't the same without all you smart folks up here. And here, let's get Manaz and JT, and then somebody new raising their hand, Rajat. I think this might be your first time, so let's behave ourselves, Rajat. So anyway, here's what I wanted to start with is, and why I wanted to ping you in the room here, Wizza. Is Wizza still on stage, right? Yeah, there you are. So tomorrow at this time, actually 1 hour, where we do this every day, twice a day, which you can see by clicking on the title of this room, our regular schedule. However, tomorrow we're going to start in this time zone an extra 1 hour early to bring some African investors and African startups together live on stage to pitch for actual real. These are real pitches for real money. And the goal is based to hopefully get some make some valuable connections, and this is not some trivial clubhouse kind of gimmick. This is, as Johan on stage, any Swede in the whole audience can tell you, an event I've been doing every month for 8 years in Stockholm, and every month we normally have 3 startup pitches, and usually 3 or 4 or 5 months after that we have an announcement that one of them got funding. Every month we have several funding announcements on stage at that event, and including the startups who pitched 2-3 months before, because it takes a little bit of time for them to make the deals happen. But out of 8 years of doing this event every month, we're now doing them in Clubhouse, which I think is cool for the Clubhouse audience. And I think it's super cool because normally we focus on the Nordics because the investors normally fly into Stockholm to be on stage. But we're not able to meet physically in Stockholm. So we're meeting virtually in Clubhouse. And that's why we're taking advantage of the fact that we can expand the geography beyond the Nordics. And let's while we're doing it virtually, we might as well do Asia like we did last month, and Africa like we're doing tomorrow. And that's why I'm super excited about it. I just want to call it out because Mabwana speaks highly of you, Wiz. He mentioned your startup, and I'm super excited to see these pitches tomorrow and to see how the investors respond, and to kind of illustrate the point, the best VC in the world by most people's estimation would be Sequoia Capital, who just within the last a week or two just did an investment in Africa. And that tells me normally when Sequoia starts doing investments, all the other investors pay attention. And so I think it's perfectly suitable that we happen to be focusing on Africa this month for this tech meetup. So I hope you all join us tomorrow. It'll be an hour before right now, and then we'll do it for an hour, and then we'll go into the tech news after that. But please do try and join us an hour early for that. And there you go.
That's awesome, man. I'm really, really excited about that. I think for a very long time, the African tech ecosystem has been a little bit disjointed from activities in the rest of the world because, like, the fundamental nature of the challenges being solved here are just different from many other parts of the world. But now, with the development that has taken place in the last few years, I think there's a lot of parallels that are being drawn. Yesterday, Patrick Collison, the CEO of Stripe, he tweeted about Stripe launching payment links on the Stripe platform, things that have existed on African payment platforms for the last 4 years. And he acknowledged that part of the benefit in Stripe's diversification strategies to be able to draw lessons from other global players. So there's a lot going on. I think Africa is a really exciting market. By 2030, 2050, we should have the world's youngest working population. And I think that like represents a massive opportunity for both investors and operators looking to create massive impact and incredible returns.
100%. Because I'm looking at India now. And by the way, Monica just did a Asia Tech Room, and people had been sleeping on India, like all across Europe and the US. Sequoia wasn't. Sequoia did some Indian investments. And we happen to have one of the biggest startups in Stockholm in the last 8 years is Truecaller, which is entirely focused on India as their market. And they went there to sort of test it out, and the market they realized was so big they never needed to go anywhere else beyond it, because it's a billion plus people. They became a unicorn just focusing on India. And so that's when I realized, like, wow, India is no joke. And now we are seeing, and we've been tracking. I mean, it sounds like a joke. It's like every day, and that sounds like an exaggeration, but it barely is. I guess every other day there's a new unicorn in India now. And my point is that when things come together, that when the neurons start connecting, all of a sudden things start firing. Next thing you know, the pan's boiling, and boom, and now the unicorns are popping out of there like popcorn, like right when the kernels get to that right temperature, and then it's just popcorn popping like crazy over there. And my prediction is this: in the same way that people slept on India, and now the unicorns are just popping out of the bowl over there. The I'm watching now a little more closely, like, it's actually Africa where the oil is starting to simmer, and it'll be, they just had their first, one of their first unicorns there in Lagos, and it was a fintech, and the same sequence of events is starting to unfold, and that's why Sequoia just came in there, and all the early indicators are all starting to happen, and a year or two from now, it'll be similar to where India is at, where it's just, all of the connections are being made, and the popcorn starts popping over there. So I think the key, if you really want to, just as you just said, like, the framework is being set up now, and the foundation's being laid right now, and I'm watching it with intense fascination. So I'm super looking forward to tomorrow.
Yeah, awesome. One thing I would love for you to do for me, Tyler, I'm going to DM you on Twitter a
Yep.
link to an article that I want you to tweet from the Tech News Around the World's
Okay,
Twitter account.
will do.
It's called The Chicken or the Exit. It's a very, very detailed analysis of the state of Africa's ecosystem, especially when it comes to the question of like, are liquidity events happening? Are there enough unicorns? And it has got some very exciting data comparing the rate of new unicorns per year for different regions. It's got great data for Latin America, India, China, and Africa. And I don't want to spoil it for people, but like, just read through it. It's a fantastic read, and I think it'll give everyone quite a bit of color and context on what's going to happen in Africa over the next few years.
Very cool. We've got, by the way, I think we still have room for one more startup to pitch in the event tomorrow, and maybe room for one more investor. So if you or somebody should be on stage tomorrow, because we're going to limit it to just a handful of investors and startups just to keep it tight. But if you think you know somebody, please DM me directly on my Twitter, as Wizard just did, and the chicken or the exit, and I'm going to retweet it out right now. Wizard, thank you. If I do as Wizard just did, and please DM me on Twitter if you think you know or you happen to be an investor or startup in Africa that should be part of this event tomorrow. And I'm tweeting this out from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, which is very simply TNATW, which is conveniently short for Tech News Around the World. And there's two reasons you should follow Tech News Around the World. There's actually three very good reasons. Number one, when we talk about articles in this room, as we do every 2, 3, 4 minutes, we tweet out a link to the article we are talking about, and you can click on it and read it if that's convenient for you, wherever you happen to be. Number two, if you happen to miss us here one day, you can get a sense for what we covered, and you can submit stories for us to cover. Please don't DM them to me. it's much better that you tweet them from your Twitter account and include our Twitter account, TNATW, and then I get a notification and I can see it and I can easily retweet it, just as I can do right now with Monica just sent in a tweet about the new growing unicorn in India called Koo, which is I just retweeted just now, very simply. So she found a tweet that she likes. She included the TNATW Twitter account in the tweet, and boom, one click, and I can retweet it to everybody. And I have to say, that Twitter account is now up to like 1,200 followers, and we're adding nearly 100 Twitter followers a day. So within no time, I think we'll get up to 10,000 followers, and it'll be quite a very useful tool. And yeah, let's jump into it. There's no shortage of headlines. We've got a lot of people with hands up already. And it looks like, Darren, you might be from the continent, so I'd love to hear what you got to say. Amanda, you're always welcome up here, of course.
So just a note there, Tyler. Darren's actually the co-author of the article that I just referenced, The Chicken or the Exit. So awesome. He's a great person to have on, and I would love to have him for the events tomorrow as well.
Perfect.
He's one of the continent's smartest analysts.
Well, that's an instant follow on. If it's good enough for you, I'm incredibly stingy with my follows, but Darren, you are my new follow. What's going on, Darren?
Thanks.
Yeah,
thanks for following.
I just tweeted out the article that Wiza sent me in my DMs, so I'm going to dive into that. Speaking of articles and DMs, let's jump into tech news around the world here, and this one is really interesting. In the previous time zone, when we met about 7 hours ago, we were talking about India and WhatsApp, which is the big story. Let's start there because this is still the big story, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. But there's a new development that I need to clue everybody in on that's super interesting. So at Monica and others were breaking the story. And my God, Monica, you got a lot of retweets on this story today, did you not? This WhatsApp.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, how many retweets did you get on this story?
58 or 60, which is fairly significant, but the engagement is pretty high.
Yeah. So WhatsApp is suing the Indian government over WhatsApp's new privacy rules. And they are claiming that WhatsApp has filed a lawsuit in Delhi against the Indian government seeking to block regulations coming into force on Wednesday that experts say would compel Facebook's messaging app to break privacy protections. But basically, WhatsApp is trying to save its own ass because India is putting in new regulations that would block WhatsApp from India. And so WhatsApp doesn't want to leave India. And at the same time, WhatsApp doesn't want to change its privacy policy. So WhatsApp's going to do what Americans always do, is take it to court. And I don't know if that will work in India the same way it works in America, because basically in the US, everything ends up in court. And that's a very tested, tried and true way to slow down any decision is, get the lawyers involved and take it to court. And that extends, gives you another 2 or 3 years to keep doing business as usual while the courts figure it out. And in this case, China doesn't play that way, by the way. When China tells you to do something, you don't get to take it to court, as their big tech companies just have been learning lately. They got 15 days to fix their data privacy issues, was in the news. And WhatsApp is going to find out very soon what the Indian government's going to do about their privacy policies. And Twitter as well learned about 24 hours ago when the government sent down a group of gentlemen down to Twitter's HQ in India to ask them what the hell's going on, and why is Twitter adding little warnings to the tweets being sent out by the government. And rather than send an email or a phone call, they sent down a handful of gentlemen in person to inquire as to what the hell's going on exactly. But luckily for Twitter, nobody was at the office that day, but it was all captured on video, and we retweeted that yesterday. Now, that's what's going on today, this escalating tension between WhatsApp in India and Twitter and India. And then we covered simultaneously Russia is telling YouTube they have to take down content that they find objectionable and instigating destabling of their, kind of trouble, rabble rousing content on YouTube that Russia is accusing YouTube of, that they're forcing them to take down, which is Google, by the way. And they're telling Google, you got to take down this content we don't like. Oh, and by the way, you have to reinstate this content that we do like. Because YouTube took down some Russian content that YouTube doesn't like and the US government doesn't like because it's related to sanctioned individuals in Russia. And Russia saying, no, you have to put that content back that we do like and take down this other content that we don't like, or else we are now slowing down YouTube in Russia, just as they did to Twitter. And that's a really clever halfway between, the binary of blocking or not blocking is just slowing it down and making it inconvenient, which is truly clever. But anyways, that's what's going on. But there's a whole new development in this crazy drama since we met 7 hours ago, which is being reported by the Washington Post, among many. And here it is from the Washington Post. Russia is the biggest player in disinformation. Oh, I'm sorry. I ruined the joke by giving the punchline. Here's the setup. One of the other big stories we were dabbling in the other time zone today was around a very suspicious story about a PR firm that was reportedly from the UK, had reached out to some YouTubers in France, asking them and offering to pay them. And there was one YouTuber specifically who was named. I believe his name was Oliver. Anyway, he had 1 million YouTube followers. And he and other YouTubers were being propositioned by some very shadowy PR agency out of the UK, apparently, that was offering money to say that, to spread very clear disinformation. And they wanted these YouTubers to say that Pfizer's vaccine is killing far more people than AstraZeneca's vaccine. Say what? Let's say, huh? And that's obviously an incredibly strange proposition, right? Now, we did a little survey in the room because we were analyzing who on earth would do such a crazy campaign to ask a bunch of YouTubers to spread misinformation about vaccines. Now, by the way, in that dynamic, and I got the names correct, the proposition was, please spread disinformation about Pfizer as being their vaccine being much more deadly than AstraZeneca. Well, on the face of it, AstraZeneca is behind this, obviously, right? And clearly not Pfizer, and because they're being told, hey, make Pfizer look bad, make AstraZeneca look good. Simple as that. Okay, well, there's a big problem here at the face of it, because AstraZeneca would, as a huge multinational company between Sweden and the UK, namely, would never in a million years have anything to do with any PR firm that would ask YouTubers to spread misinformation about their competitor, Pfizer. Never in a million years would that ever happen. And if you think that would happen, I have some bridges to sell you. Please DM me. But here, let's look at the result of this campaign. The result of this action by this shadowy PR firm is that you've now got a lot of people talking all over the media about YouTubers being paid to say untruths and spread fake news about vaccines. And so you have lots of stories now going around in multiple publications around the world saying, oh, there's YouTubers being paid to spread misinformation about vaccines. They're being paid to say that Pfizer is more deadly, and the YouTubers and misinformation and fake news and vaccines and fake news and vaccines. And what this does is spread the sentiment that you can't trust data around vaccines. And who would benefit from that? Well, we did a little poll of the audience, and it turns out 4-1, or more than 4-1. Was it, Cal? What were the numbers? Almost 5-1. Said that they think, it's probably a state actor who's behind this. Now that leads me to the what I want to share, which is the new headline from the Washington Post that just came out, which is Russia is the biggest player in disinformation, according to Facebook. Facebook report released today says that Russia is still the largest producer of disinformation, a notable finding just 5 years after Russia operatives launched a far-reaching campaign to infiltrate social media during the 2016 presidential election campaign. Facebook says it has uncovered disinformation campaigns in more than 50 countries since 2017, so in the last 4 years, when it began the cat and mouse game of cracking down on political actors seeking to manipulate public debate on its platform. The report, which summarizes 150 disinformation operations the company says it disrupted in that period, highlights how such coordinated efforts have become more sophisticated and costly to run in recent years, even as these operators struggle to influence large numbers of people as they once did. Meanwhile, more players have learned from the Russian example and have started disinformation operations in their own countries, Facebook says. That includes networks of shadowy public relation firms that sometimes do work for both sides within a country, as well as politicians, fringe political groups, and governments themselves, said Nathaniel Gleicher, Facebook's head of security policy. And here's his quote. It started out as an elite sport, but now we see more and more people getting into the game, said Nathaniel Gleicher, Facebook's head of security policy, who added that such efforts increasingly resemble influence operations that were conducted before social media, etc., etc. So I'm going to tweet out this article from the Washington Post so you can read it from yourself from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account about Russia being the main source of these fake news campaigns and shadowy PR firms.
So Tyler, the audience in the morning was onto it. It's 7-1, by the way, the ratio, which is kind of, yeah. So the audience was on it, but I don't know if it's a different audience now. But I think there are more evidence now, so it'll probably be just a 7-1, probably be even more.
This is sort of well documented, though, that Russia's been doing disinformation about vaccines for a number of reasons. One is, of course, they just want to sow disinformation because it destabilizes Western countries, and they've been very successful at that. Number one, but number two, they have their own vaccine that's not as good, and therefore having disinformation about others helps them. And this is this is a story, an old story. I mean,
so Tyler,
this particular version is new. I'm going to get off.
You're missing the biggest elephant here, Tyler. So if you look at the financial market on November, the day that Pfizer released the news that the efficacy rate was 80% or 70, 80, 90% plus, look at that date. And from that date, look where the stock market is. It's rallied 40%. The Wall Street, it was tanking I remember trading it. I remember looking at that chart when that Pfizer came. That's the day that the whole entire market completely snapped, and that's where we ended up. Because that's as you guys, I don't know if you remember, everyone was looking for hope. What's going to happen to stop this COVID, spreading, and how are we going to get out of this mess? And when the Pfizer headline hit, that's the day I remember the market just put the bottom on that route that we saw compared to the previous route when we heard the Wuhan news. The second route was when that got stopped is when the Pfizer news got released, and since then, I remember cable. Pound against dollar was at 127. Now it's at 142. I remember Wall Street was at 26,000. Now it's at 34,000, almost a 20, 30, 40% rally since that day. So I think there's a lot of, so Russia, it's not just a very simple play here. They pay these things because these news are very, very important.
Yeah. Well, you're right, Dan. It isn't much of a surprise. It is a bit of old news, but it is interesting that in the Washington Post that the head of Facebook is very clearly saying Russia is the worst of these bad actors in spreading intentionally divisive misinformation, particularly around vaccines. As you said, you bring up a really interesting point around their own vaccine. It's a wild game weaponizing the media essentially to balkanize a nation on all kinds of issues, particularly around vaccines, which is incredibly troubling. And
of course Trump, the biggest one of all, destabilizing the world.
It's truly interesting times that we live in, and it requires that people have much better critical thinking when it comes to media and the media they consume, and as evidenced by this story today, because a lot of people are those YouTubers who were approached by that shadowy UK PR firm naturally fell right into the trap of telling everybody, reaching out directly to the media with screenshots saying, hey, I'm being offered money to spread misinformation about vaccines. And then that becomes the big story, that the YouTubers spread information, that YouTubers are, by extension, likely taking money from, while this one person blew the whistle, we are left to assume that a bunch of other people took the money, and now that causes all the data around vaccines to be suspect, and it just wreaks havoc. And anyway.
Well, put vaccines Tyler, aside.
Yes, John.
They also do this on climate change.
Yeah.
Because they don't want, they get all their money from natural gas and oil and stuff like that. So they don't want any action on climate. So they've been doing that for a long time too. Consequences far, far more serious than the vaccine disinformation.
There it is, folks.
Mulder. Yeah. Hey, Tyler.
Yes, John.
If I could chime in.
Of course you can.
So I think history reveals that media from the very beginning of time have been exploited for people to protect their power and weaponized in various forms. And what's happening with social media is that it's allowed fewer individuals to have a much broader reach. So the distinction between freedom of speech and freedom of reach becomes really important. And what Section 230 unintentionally does, this is one of the biggest examples of the law of unintended consequences, is if any of the platforms takes an aggressive position in editorializing and filtering that apparently, and there's a great article on this in Wired, apparently opens them up to grievance lawsuits from anybody and everybody who feels that they were in any way filtered in their posts on social media. So it was intended to protect free speech, but when it protected free reach, it has caused these unintended problems of, if you filter anything, you're responsible for filtering everything. This is John. I'm done speaking.
Yep. Yeah, there is always more aspects and angles that have broader and deeper implications than is on the surface at times, and that's a very valid point. So we touched on the WhatsApp issue in India very quickly, and Russia with YouTube and the back and forth of these countries and blah, 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 blah. Other news that I'll start off with, we talked about, it was like 4 or 5 days ago, where Amazon was rumored to be acquiring MGM Studios, and the news has now broke that Amazon has confirmed it will acquire MGM Studios for the grand total of $8.45 billion. Its second largest acquisition since it paid $13.7 billion for Whole Foods in 2017, and it's being widely covered. And it does speak to the point that the platforms like Amazon, like Apple, all the streaming platforms who now collect the money from the end consumers. So your dollars go directly to these subscription platforms, and they're going right over the heads of these studios like MGM Studios, which, by the way, MGM Studios used to collect your money when you used to buy a ticket at the movie theater, and now they no longer do. Now that money goes to Netflix, and then Netflix pays the money to MGM if they played an MGM film on Netflix. So now that the money's going to the platforms are now calling the shots and now acquiring the studios. And the studios are no longer calling the shots in Hollywood. Amazon, as reflected by this headline. It's a whole new world, and it's really interesting that Amazon finds itself, and Apple and the other platforms like Netflix. Netflix now has to go to all these film festivals, meet all of the aspiring producers and actors, and figure out which content, films, and TV shows they want to greenlight, as we call it in the biz. Michael, you can speak a bit about this. But notably missing from these names that have these big streaming platforms. And by the way, Spotify is a huge streaming platform for audio, and it's always been rumored that they could turn on video as well and become one of the big video streaming platforms quite easily. They already have the subscribers, right? And by the way, they did happen to hire a friend of mine named Shiva, who was the head of YouTube, to join over at Spotify. And what did Shiva do at Spotify? And then he left to go work at WeWork when they were raising ridiculous money from Masayoshi's son at SoftBank. But he did spend a couple years with us in Stockholm at Spotify when coming straight from YouTube. I wonder what Shiva was working on. I'll let you wonder about that. But yeah, the big players in the streaming, Amazon, Apple One, Netflix, and Disney is the other notably big player here. And then there was the huge announcement recently that AT&T is selling off Discovery as kind of a bundle of Discovery and Warner Media. And there's a whole lot of TV shows and films as part of that. And,
well, you know that they were saying, Tyler, that well, you remember back in like 2015 when Apple was actually considering purchasing Warner Media, and now that merger's gone through, there's starting to be rumblings that this could potentially. I mean, Apple at this point, and with how much this thing is worth, it now Apple's really the only player out there who could even actually buy it. And there's rumblings that that might be the thing that they're thinking about doing just to kind of fill out their content.
Yep.
Tyler, also to your point of Spotify and the video, I absolutely think they will do it. And the reason being is a couple years ago, we did it serious and we started out with Howard Stern video clips. And that's how we sort of broke into it. But what I will tell you is, though, is we are sort of having, I don't want to say a war, but we moved into more podcasting. So I don't know if that's a sign that we're going to kind of stay away from that, or if we will go full speed ahead in that. So I think it was interesting you mentioned that because, like I said, it's serious. We did start to dabble in that. It's been about 2 years ago now.
Yep.
So more to come on that, definitely.
And not surprising that Spotify acquired Joe Rogan from YouTube, and they're showing Joe Rogan's podcast on Spotify in video. Well, now, isn't that interesting?
Hey, Tyler.
Yes.
Sorry, so I do understand the industry of streaming very well because my last startup was a streaming platform to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you a context, all these movements that are making up here by acquisition of major production houses is the move that was, I think, incinerated start to begin with Disney, because as Netflix used to pay a huge amount of content fees to Disney realized that they could make a lot of money from their own by just opening up the streaming platform and making the tech around it, because they already own the content. So it was easier for them to start a streaming platform. So now that happened, a lot of content from especially Marvel contents, which was one of the most viewed on Amazon as well as Netflix, when they moved to a specific streaming platform to Disney, they saw that they lost a lot of money there. And I think that's the integration of all these streaming platforms to start acquisition of more and more production houses, because they do have the money, and in the longer term of them, yes, they can fill up because OTT platform these days have become a library, it has become properly like a library such. And for them to get content at a cheaper price and keep more users, as well as reduction of cost has to be done from some care. I think the move that makes sense for them is to acquire more and more production houses, because they can reduce the licensing fee for such and still charge the audiences the same price and make more money. So I think it's a very good gameplay from their end, and they do have the money because of the kind of money that they're making through entertainment sectors itself.
And I think to your point, so we rebranded ourselves as SXM. I can't even ever say it. Media. I wonder how Spotify is going to transition as well, because now we're known as a media company, to your point, and we're not known as just audio anymore. So I think we're all going to start blurring lines together within these companies, and it's going to be very interesting how this pans out.
It gets even more interesting because the video companies like YouTube, for example, is now getting into social commerce, as Google announced, and as we watched together live in it was like a holy shit moment. We all watched it together in this room during the Google I/O event, which was live streamed just a few days ago on May 18th. And they showed a YouTube that you've never seen before, where now the shoes that the person in the YouTube video is wearing are now clickable and purchasable right there in YouTube. Holy shit. And it was made possible by a partnership with Shopify. Wow. And you've got Facebook's live stream coming up on June 2nd now, about 6 days from now, and we are going to have a live room for that. And then you've got Apple's big annual flagship event coming up on June 7th. And you better believe we're going to have a live stream companion room set up for that.
Oh, yeah.
And here's what's interesting is the video companies are becoming e-commerce companies because all of that juicy video content has lots of clickable products in those videos. Imagine all those billions of YouTube videos and all the products in those videos that are now clickable for purchase. And imagine all of the people reviewing. There's no product that becomes available on Amazon that doesn't get reviewed on YouTube as a really intensive YouTube unboxing video. And so why not buy it right from the YouTube video? And then Facebook even showed data recently that Facebook's claiming that some 80% of people, when they see something they want to buy online, they go to Facebook and Instagram to do more research about it, to watch the videos of the unboxings and the reviews. And yeah, well, why not make the items purchasable right in the middle of the review video? And let the reviewer of that and the person doing the unboxing video monetize it and etc. And that's what's coming with the boom of social commerce and the creator economy. But it gets more interesting because Spotify, we've been saying, also is going to participate in the creator economy because they have a lot of music creatives, right? Millions and millions and millions of them, tens of millions of them. And they can now start monetizing their musicianship as a music creator on Spotify. What do I mean by that? Well, they just purchased one of the Clubhouse clones, and you can imagine that there will be Clubhouse-like rooms all throughout Spotify for every artist, so that the fans of those artists, imagine what the Taylor Swift room is going to be like in Spotify, or imagine what the BTS room, the biggest artist in the world out of South Korea, or Blackpink, or these huge artists now. All the top 100 artists are all going to have these rooms with millions of fans in them. And what happens when those artists go into those rooms and do audio performances? Well, they could do what Twitter just announced Twitter's going to do, is they're going to have ticketed rooms, because Twitter also has rooms like Clubhouse, and Twitter just announced they're called Twitter Spaces. And that, by the way, that's another reason to follow the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, because on the weekends we do open a Twitter space under the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, and you can see it firsthand if you've never been in one. They're quite buggy in summary, but hopefully they'll get those bugs worked out. But my point is,
Tyler, I wanted to say something about what you're talking about, if you don't mind.
Yeah, hold on one sec, Lisa, and I'll hand the mic to you. Yeah. Which is Twitter, interestingly, just announced a few days ago that their Twitter Spaces are now going to have what they call ticketed Twitter Spaces, so that the content creators of those spaces can charge their fans to enter those rooms. And you better believe Taylor Swift is going to be cashing in big time when she creates rooms for her fans. The question is, which artists are going to be first, and how much are they going to charge for the rooms? Yes, go ahead, Lisa.
Monetization and decentralization, it's going to be very tough to operate in a lot of spaces as entrepreneurs, because every decentralized platform will then become centralized when it comes to building your brand, right? So if I'm only known on Twitter, or if I'm only known on Instagram, that's my bread and butter, that becomes a centralized platform for me. So me as an entrepreneur, if I wanted to diversify my monetization, I now had to have like 50 million different handles between, okay, Clubhouse, and people go, what's her following on Clubhouse? If that's the centralized platform that they use. And then the same thing for Twitter, then the same thing for Instagram, the same thing for that new app fan base. And a lot of people, they have these open architectures where they can add different elements via the Internet of Things, but it's like now you have 20 different platforms that it's very hard to hone in on the specialization of what it actually does in the core essence. So there is a such thing to me as having an open architecture that's too open, because then your vision and your mission becomes lost in just trying to keep up with the trend. So I'm trying to figure out who's going to be the bold one to stick to their core values and their core mission and vision, and really fine tune their objectives to look at something that could be projected as, this is our brand identity and we choose to be like Coca-Cola and stay within that mechanism, as opposed to just splatter everything all over the place and you do this and monetize Clubhouse and Stripe and this and that. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're gonna go batshit crazy.
Yeah.
That's Lisa. It's my time.
Yeah, I just want to say, Lisa, that's brilliant. Thank you for that insight. That is brilliant.
Yep.
Hey, sorry, just wanted to chip in one thing. Regarding Tyler, regarding the question that you posed, the idea that you posed, how video streaming platform these days can go into social commerce, and what the entire philosophy of that thing. So when we were building our platform to work with, I mean, this is especially very India focused, but I think it still applies to the entire globe, and especially South Asia as well as US. So understand this, like whenever you watch a movie, if let's assume your favorite character or favorite the protagonist of a movie wears a certain kind of a jacket, certain kind of a shoe, certain kind of thing that you want to buy, if those can be portrayed as a social commerce where you can just buy that product directly from the video, check it out, the link for, like if you're watching a movie on Netflix and you like a jacket that the hero is wearing or the main actor is wearing or the actress is wearing, you could just directly go and get options that side where you can just go and buy that. I think is a huge space to enter, because that is where they could capitalize on the entire celebrity and how the movie endorsements work in with partnership with like product like companies, clothes companies, and selling their product based on the movies and everything else. So I think that's a good insight. That's a good space to be in. Also, it also helps the movie creators, endorse that product as well as make more money of the revenue from these platforms. I think those way make a lot of sense. And regarding that news, I just wanted to contribute news, but let me know when that's a good time.
Yeah.
Right, but as an omnipreneur, like for instance, I'm an astronaut candidate. My whole thing is advocating space in the arts, and people outside of NASA can actually go to space. So me advocating that and having to be on like very integral spaces such as Clubhouse and this and that and this, and then okay, VCs over here, promote my brand over here, go over here and do this. Like I'm literally occupying as a omnipreneur, and there's probably a lot of people in this Clubhouse space that can attest to what I'm saying. Yes, on a platform base and on a company tech base, the opportunities seem endless, but then you also have to recruit these omnipreneurs that have to literally single-handedly pick between what's my trade space, and doing what I'm doing and learning a platform like Twitter, then learning a platform like Clubhouse, and then having to learn another platform such as this, and then catering my business model to adjust to all 3 or 10 or 15 platforms.
So to your point, Lisa, just quickly, we've already seen with social media that kind of problem, people trying to manage all the different accounts. And that's why you have things like Soho Social and Buffer and all of those things where it's a centralized place. So one of the real winners in this is if these APIs open, the first person to come along with a centralized platform that lets you manage your social media driven sales in all the different applications, in one centralized place, that's going to be a winner.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened in the early days when Twitter and Facebook and Instagram started, when you had brands that needed to reach all of those platforms simultaneously. There wasn't money involved. It was just followers and clicks and likes and hearts. Hootsuite came to mind. There was quite a few of them. Radiant 6 was a big one. And I have friends who worked at those. Like invited Marcus, who was the CMO at Radiant 6. Anyway, but you're right, is they're going to have to now add in the financial layer to all of those services as well, which is going to be a little bit tricky. But I believe that it will happen, because you're right. And by the way, the individual low-key unsigned artist and amateur content creator might get burned unless they've got a lot of spare time or some friends in very low cost places in Romania that they can pay very low salaries to help them keep up and reposting on all of these platforms in a more manual way. Although these tools are getting cheaper. However, the ones that will benefit are the teams that can benefit from these tools. Can be kind of expensive. Like Radiant 6 was not cheap. For if you want the enterprise class license, it's like $150 a month. But if you've got products to sell on all these platforms, you'll make that money back very quickly. But if you're, starting out, it's not worth investing the 150 because you don't have a lot of products to sell. And so you get this gap between, the beginners and then the companies with more resources. it'll be interesting to watch who really monetizes YouTube. And by the way, all of these platforms are going to be competing with each other. YouTube is going to be competing with Instagram for influencers. And by the way, it's already happening. YouTube just created $100 million fund to entice the top TikTokers to leave TikTok to start creating their content on YouTube. Well, why would they do that? Because YouTube knows that those influencers on TikTok are going to be worth 10 times what they pay for them, because they're going to start monetizing them. It's not worth paying TikTokers, $500,000 a piece to leave TikTok unless they're going to start making real money. And they are, because social commerce is coming, and YouTube knows that. And TikTok is going to be turned into social shopping. Real live stream social shopping is coming to TikTok. It's coming to Instagram. And Instagram, by the way, just boosted up their features and functions within Instagram on the live streaming front. They've yet to announce the payment side, but I will bet any amount. I will bet the entire room all together. Please, let's bet everything you own and everything I own that Instagram's going to announce the ability for their creatives to sell things on their platform within the next month. By the way. Yeah, go ahead, Amy. Yeah, but I just wanted to know there's going to be really strong competition between these social media platforms to attract the talent, knowing that the talent has limited capabilities and limited resources and time. They're going to have to choose which platforms they go on to, or use these expensive platforms like Radiant 6 that semi-automated. Go ahead. We'll go.
Shopify could really cash in on
I wanted
this.
to share one quick piece of news that I just literally got into my mailbox, and it's super crazy, but I'm going to make it really quick.
Okay.
Apple might be getting into the crypto space because they just posted.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yes. I'll send it to you. No, I'll send it to you. It's literally Apple just posted a job for 5 years experience, a business development professional that has an understanding of digital payments, digital currencies with BPN Bank or something like that. It's in Decrypt. I'll post it and tag you, but it's really fascinating because they're looking at it for payments.
That is a great headline.
Guys, this is a
company making
millions of dollars, and they're just posting for a specific job role. I mean, how does that? They can literally buy an entire country to build a payment system.
Well, it could be Apple coins or something like that.
I could read a couple of lines from it. 1 second.
Apple
I'll just read a couple.
They want to do blockchain-based payments, or they're going to do something with the blockchain. I don't doubt that.
This is what it says. Apple is seeking a business development manager with 5+ years experience working in or with alternative payment providers such as digital wallets, BNPL, fast payments, cryptocurrency, according to a job listing posted to a website yesterday.
Let's call them right now.
This person would
is there a phone number on that
the company's
posting?
Wallets, payments, and commerce team, and would lead partnerships in the alternative payment providers.
Tyler, you should call Warren Buffett and ask him how he's thinking about this now.
Tyler,
yeah, wait.
This might also be related to NFTs because people want to create and invest in NFTs. It might not be necessarily related to currency. So.
Yeah, but the value of the NFT and keeping the value and keeping your equity in your brand, that's something totally different than to just, hey, crypto, buy it in this coin instead of this coin, and we're going to use this stable coin, and what's considered stable versus not. Okay, let's look at all the ones that have less renewable energy use to be able to create the coin. Like, it's a whole thing.
I have another theory,
which I cannot wait to hear, because, ladies and gentlemen,
social tokens. Social tokens. Social tokens are rewards that you give your community, and Apple has very loyal communities, and I believe that they might be creating social tokens for the Apple community to just keep them on there.
Can I posture a thought here?
Yes.
So why don't we put it in that everybody's right? I think that Apple has already a blockchain group and it's been quite active, and there are a number of people in that group that I know that are pretty good at crypto and have been involved in companies that have had crypto. So my guess is that Apple is interested in a series of things. They're interested in, look at all the credit cards that have some kind of a stable coin or some kind of Bitcoin, whether it's PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, etc. So what are they going to do in that area, and how's it going to be organized? They've already seen Facebook fall flat on its face with its stable coin. So I doubt very much they're going down an Apple coin, going to have a stable coin of their own, and would probably deal with the US dollar when it's going to come out, stable coin, as well as others that exist. But they'll have to figure out, are they going to have an Apple wallet? What wallet are they going to use, or what will they think of for their payment system in concert with and in conjunction with the PayPals and everything of this world? They probably may be thinking about a social token down the line, and what does that look like, and what does it do, and where does it go? I think there will be more regulation around NFTs and the selling of NFTs. So if they're going to get in that, quote, marketplace, they're going to have to think about how does that work for them, and what are their liabilities for all of that. So my guess is that whatever crypto person they get will be thinking about how do they interact on a global and on a state-by-state basis. What are the regs they may or may not need to do? And Apple's already gone down that line on regs and taxes and everything when in just normal course of business. So they'll just apply the same kind of things if they go into an NFT marketplace. But my guess is they're exploring all of these different avenues and seeing where it works, and for them as well as for their customers, with customers both as the people that sell and the people that buy.
I've got an idea. I just got an idea. And I have to credit Dr. Francine Hardaway and Donna for this idea. Apple has huge data centers, including one in Sweden, but all over the world. And those data centers are not used to full capacity, and they've got billions of devices around the planet. Matter of fact, I'm using one right now, which is a MacBook Pro and an iPhone. And they've got all of these devices, and you've got devices, and you're not using your devices 24 hours a day. And when you're not using your devices, they could make a network that mine crypto. And you get...
Yeah, Pi already does that. When I downloaded it in my phone, I could see like the volume of network usage, and it's very, very high, to where I would have Google or somebody detect like, hey, your usage is high. Is this really you, or is this a bot trying to access the Google site? It happened as soon as I downloaded Pi.
Tyler,
hey Donna, can I ask Donna a quick question?
Oops, sorry, go on.
Yes, sorry, this is John. Can I ask Donna a quick question?
Yeah,
so when the UK and the US and other nation states issue their stable coins pegged to their current currency, do you believe it's likely that other coins like Bitcoin may be relegated to trafficking in illicit trade predominantly, or do you think that there's room for both central bank stablecoins and Bitcoin for legitimate commerce?
Well, so I would frame your question differently, but I'll answer it the way you asked it. So I think that Bitcoin and central bank digital currencies are going to live side by side. And I completely reject the idea that Bitcoin is used in any way primarily for, or will be used primarily for, any illicit trade. It is more trackable than cash and other kinds of things used in illicit activity, including paintings. I think what will suffer a lot under a central bank digital currency, and will be something like, in my opinion, Tether. I think stable coins will be replaced on many exchanges, or be slowly phased out because the US dollar as a stable coin will be backed, whereas we know as fact that Tether is not fully backed. So I would rather change from my Bitcoin into the US central bank digital currency while I'm waiting on the exchange for another trade that I might want to do if I'm a trader, and then go back into my Bitcoin, or other people go into other things as well. So I think that they will cohabitate. And slowly, maybe some of the other stable coins will be phased out or regulated more seriously, as we've seen both in the EU and proposed in the US, but I'm not sure where the Stablecoin Act went, where there is a specific look at stable coins for regulation as opposed to Bitcoin. So does that start to answer your question, John?
It does. One quick follow-up. What are the capital gains implications of going in and out of Bitcoin, and how do you see that playing out?
In which country?
It's in which country, but if we speak
in the US,
if we speak specifically to the US at the moment, going in and out of Bitcoin is no different than going in and out of Amazon stock. If you book a gain, you have a tax consequences. If you have a loss, you do the same thing what you would do with the stock. It's considered as property for the taxation purposes, short and long term capital gains.
So,
do you guys know
Thank
the
you.
back office of cryptocurrency and what's going down? Because if you have over 1 million, let's say, call it share of cryptos, they'll pay you interest to keep it per month, and you'll have your crypto into the exchange. And the more people borrow it to hold a placement in fiat money with your crypto, they don't actually own the crypto. They're just buying the value of the crypto and swapping it on the market. So they'll pay you to leverage your crypto and give you a percentage. And so they do that on the centralized platforms like Coinbase and all that other stuff. If you buy a lot of crypto, but at 5% APR or whatever like that. So it's very interesting because I actually invested in a cryptocurrency called G999, and when I was purchasing it, I actually, before I guess it debuts next, I think it's like in July, they offered me that, and I had learned the whole back office of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I took a crypto class and everything, read a 300-page book on crypto and the blockchain and 784-bit, the whole nine. And I was also doing network architecture, the VPN API before it was even a thing to actually connect something end-to-end encryption on it and say, hey, this is non-forgeable. Here's the equity in this. To get this, it's going to cost this. The energy it would take to do this is this. Okay, what are we going to tie it to? Are we going to sell Lamborghinis on your blockchain? Because somebody could just come in and generate this and this and that and F your whole currency exchange up to where your whole crypto is devalued.
Right.
So these people like Amazon Kendra with predictive analysis, or IBM Watson, one of the two highest that I saw when I did my research as far as like predictive analysis and going into artificial intelligence, and Facebook, might I add. So they could easily pay somebody on the black market, right?
Hey, Lisa, you make a great point. Let me
Find
ask
a
you, look,
way.
I did a PhD in engineering.
Wait,
What's your
but
PhD in?
Karen.
Whoa,
Easy.
Find a way.
Go, Karen, go.
Yeah,
Easy.
Karen.
Hold on. Hold the horses. Hold on. Before this happens every time the word crypto comes up, you let it run for 15 minutes, and it becomes the snowball that wants to run the train off the tracks, over the mountain, over the cliff, into the Grand Canyon. So rather, we have.
Why don't I suggest
Tell
that
them
we
about the
I can
10%
bring it
the
back to.
10% rule,
Ben and
Tyler.
I
I
can
have.
bring it back to Apple.
Hold on.
Can I just make a suggestion,
Yes,
and
Donna.
Tyler can do anything he wants afterwards? Ben and I believe it's today. We have a room at 1:30.
Boom.
Bring more and more
Good
and
idea.
more of
Good
your
idea.
questions there. We can debate. We can punch it out
Yep.
in any way, shape, or form. Right, Ben?
That's right. Deep dive.
Yep,
Great idea.
absolutely.
Yeah, Donna and Ben are doing a deep dive
Let's
room.
not bore all the
So
punters stiff
It's
with
in.
our
Wait, I just want to
stuff
let
in here.
people know. It starts
to bring it back to.
It starts an hour and a half from now, or 2.5 from now.
Yeah, no, an hour and a half.
An hour and a half from now, Ben
Nice.
and Donna are doing a deep dive room on all things crypto, so you guys can have that full discussion, and we can get back to the headlines. And Amay also does just kind of what Talisa was mentioning, like these real onboarding rooms, and Ben does too, really helping people onboard into this fantastic world of crypto. But I have to share, somebody on stage, RootV's just found the missing link. It's this fantastic article. Here it is. And I said I was willing to bet anything that this would happen in a month, and it just happened in 10 minutes. Here it is. Instagram launches a new section for shopping products on Instagram. Instagram today announced it's adding a new feature to help connect online shoppers to product drops through its app. They call it Drops, which are new e-commerce trends, help sellers create buzz for forthcoming products in the days and weeks leading up to their availability. The products themselves are often only available in limited supplies or for a short period of time, increasing the demand because they're of limited supply. On Instagram, Drops will now have their own destination inside the app at the top of the Shop tab, where consumers can discover, browse, and shop all the latest product launches, as well as view upcoming launches. Shoppers can also sign up to receive reminders about products they're interested in from here and look through products and collections from other drops that recently took place on Instagram. I'm going to tweet this out from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, and all I can say is, I told you so. It's going to...
This is the news I was talking about that I wanted to break down.
Yeah.
Tyler, each time you can use that phrase, I told you so, you get 4 extra life and 1 power-up mushroom.
There you go. Can I sell those if I can sell those as NFTs, then we'll be into something. Yeah. Go ahead.
Tyler, yeah, I just wanted to mention, because I know you're going to hate me for doing this, but Instagram shopping has been around for a while. I think that they're just optimizing it with the drops. It sounds more like a feature optimization.
Well, what they're allowing, they're paving the way, continuously developing the inevitable way for the content creators to monetize their channels and their influence and their reach. And rather than fight all day and do selfies all day to get the likes and the followers and the clicks and the hearts, they're now going to be getting dollars and Bitcoin and Dogecoin and whatever else they hire for Apple as well. To Amaze, very interesting article that is about.
Tyler, I just wanted to add to that as well. I think that's really significant because there's one of the things when you're selling on e-commerce is the launch, managing a launch. This tells me that they're going to be looking at how successful launches are, so that the algorithm will then prioritize the launches that people are actually interested in based on either click-through rates, etc., buys, conversions, etc. So they're probably just optimizing something similar to what Amazon does. So that's quite interesting, and I think it does work in the favor of the content creators who have great communities that follow them, so that the gaming of the sales is much less, if that makes sense.
And the same as Nifty Gateway.
Yeah. Well, they got to start paving, starting in baby steps of figuring out and connecting the pipes in baby step kind of ways, because the dam's gonna break, and it's gonna be wild days here as soon as and like I said, Instagram is going to compete with YouTube and TikTok and Spotify and every other, and Facebook. And by the way, here, you want the next big prediction? This is a no-brainer though. I told you that the big Facebook annual event is coming up June 2nd. I need to add it to the calendar because we're going to have a live stream that goes right along with it. And we're going to watch live. And the second Mark Zuckerberg says, ladies and gentlemen, Apple took away all of our juicy data, but we got something much bigger and better. It's called social shopping. And here it is. And the second he mentions that it's powered by Shopify, and we all click the buy Shopify stock button, it'll be a big race. It'll be fun. But I'm predicting it now. They're going to announce, social shopping in a massive way at this event. And by the way, Apple on WWDC is going to announce their XR, VR, AR headset, for augmented reality and whatnot. And that, by the way, circles back to why Facebook and Apple and Google aren't really playing in this whole Netflix content streaming platform race, between Netflix and Disney Plus and who are the other big players on these subscription video services. Because they're focused on the even bigger, broader future. Like Facebook isn't trying to sell you a monthly subscription to video content like Netflix is, because they got something much cooler in store, which is this VR, AR, 3-dimensional world we're all going to be living in. And they think it's so compelling that you're going to forget all about your goddamn Netflix subscription. So, that's.
I think that ties into with
Say again?
I think that ties also into what people were saying with the token. I guess my pushback against that is that Apple first of all, they don't mess around with their brand, but they're a luxury brand. They don't do anything that's just for the kind of the common folk, whether it's their credit card or, there's been talk about Apple Car. If Apple puts out a car, it's not going to be a normal car. It'll be something completely different, and then a completely integrated system. They like to control everything. So I think both for Apple, but for other brands, I think social tokens are going to be very challenging because you lose control of the brand. Apple is going to be, I think, extremely reluctant to do anything where they don't have complete control over their brand, or it's not like, their whole brand is that we are a luxury item. And so I think that's an interesting kind of, it's going to be really hard for a lot of these brands luxury brands to get into NFTs.
Yeah, good point.
They've also made a big bet on privacy, Apple too, and that's another challenge for crypto.
So I was gonna say the predictive analysis in the tech space is very critical, because if you create a predictive analysis that's able to predict the next random key that your random key generator is, it can crash the whole market and everyone who subscribes to your key generator to even invent the crypto or operate in those types of spaces to even do NFTs. And if I'm a big company and this other company is running up under me, it's nothing for me to get a hacker or somebody on the black market, use my predictive analysis tool and crash their whole thing and make my token dominant. Like, this is real.
Yeah.
Whoa, there are some bold claims there, Lisa. Let's have a as fellow
Lisa,
astronaut candidate.
I'm just saying, I may be abstract with it, but
let's chat in the Lisa. Let's chat in the side room, because there's a lot of claims there.
Jesse and Lisa, please join us at the side room later. It'll be interesting.
You guys need to push through that in the side room.
Yeah, the side room is coming up in an hour and a half. Before you do, Katerina, I see Katerina. I'll hand you the mic in a second. While we're on the topic of VR and Apple, I got to point out that Michael on stage is doing, due to popular demand, a VR AR room 2 hours from now, which you can find that by clicking on the title of this room, where you'll see the Tech News Club, where you can swipe through and you'll see Ben and Donna's room about crypto stuff in an hour and a half, and then 2 hours from now you see Michael's room. I probably Victoria is part of that as well, and I keep swiping, there's all kinds of room. And tomorrow you'll see the Africa room with Mabwana and myself and Wizza and Liz and Florian. Welcome back, and we're going to have a fantastic matchmaking tomorrow here at Tech News Around the World with the African investors and startups. And there's all kinds. There's now an ed tech room. There's med tech, and please do check out the Tech News room and do follow the Tech News so you get updated on all that stuff. And I want to make sure we get into headlines because we only have an hour and a half left before we break off into the first side room. So does anyone on stage have a headline they want to share from their part of the world, geographically or professionally? And if you're in the audience and you have a headline from your part of the world you want to share, raise your hand and we'll try and get you up here to share your headline, because that's what we do here. So anyone want to jump in?
May I?
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
I have one.
Michael and then Tina. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait. I silenced somebody on the stage. Who was that? Katerina, and then Michael, and then Tina. Go ahead, Katerina.
Yeah, just wanted to add that by generating their own crypto, if you make an alternative virtual world, you keep your people like in your system. So because you want to buy virtual, all kinds of virtual things, because in the end, everything that has mass will, the value will decrease in the future, and digital things, any kind of digital information will increase in the future in value. So I think Apple won't stay with just producing toys that are, everything is basically, phones, everything. They will create virtual toys, basically. So to keep you in their virtual world, the best thing to do is put out a crypto that you can only use in their system. And, this is just, what Apple's already doing in the real world. Just and
yes.
If they recognize right now that they're an information collection company, and they are not a physical real company in the future, it will just make them more competitive for the future.
Thanks, Katerina. And then who was next? Michael, go ahead.
Yes, I'm thankful to be on the stage, grateful to the group. Always a pleasure to hear the different headlines. Just kind of sharing a little bit on both headlines and some of the space we're talking about, both crypto and mainly blockchain. Studied very heavily in the blockchain, working formerly for IBM, and just understanding that the blockchain is something that we have to understand in context to not just financial things, but also tracking and logistics and helping us 100%. To know where those things. As a person personally, headline wise, I just wanted recently, me and my family in this age of switching from crypto, from Flash were featured in New York Times Magazine this past Sunday in regards to what it is to be managing families in this time after COVID and so forth. I encourage you all to check it out. It's called What We Spent. You can find it online, or you can pull the latest this past Sunday, big yellow cover of the New York Times, just to get an insight, interactive online as well. But just letting people know that as we're transitioning from our own personal financial budgets into these crypto spaces, we have to look at it from an investing standpoint, long-term, not short-term gains, because of our unfortunate circumstances that money is lack for a lot. So people don't want to miss out. But a lot of our blockchain and what's coming is connected to what's coming down the road pipeline-wise, which quantum is what people really should be talking about and getting their heads around. Yep. But I'm just throwing that out there. I don't want to take too much. So please check out that article.
I got it right here. I'm going to tweet it from our Twitter account. It says, "What we spent in a month, 6 American families opened their doors and their wallets to show how much life cost." Is it that one?
Yes, sir. And we are very, very fortunate. My family is one of the few African-American families featured, and we're just grateful to showcase the changes and what can happen with utilizing technology and how we can all grow. And we're going to continue to share in this space to help people not only manage and grow financially. So please check it out. My organization is iambrilliant.org to gather more. But thank y'all for a moment. I love this group so much. So thanks y'all for
Michael.
all the insights.
I just tweeted it from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account at TNATW. And somebody just shared a humdinger of an article to the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, and I'm retweeting it. Thank you, Melinda. Here's the headline. Pinterest to test live streamed events this month with 21 creators. And this is all about the content creator economy coming this way fast and furious, where Pinterest wants in on this game, y'all. I told you every social network there is going to start adding video and start adding e-commerce. If you've got an app with eyeballs, here's your future of your app. You're going to start adding video, and you're going to start adding the ability for people in those videos to start selling shit to their fans in your app. That's just the future. It's plain and simple. I don't care if you got a dog. People are gonna start selling shit on Tinder. It's coming. Anybody with people in their apps, those people are gonna start monetizing their followers in those apps. End of discussion. Because otherwise, the people in your app are gonna be leaving to TikTok or whoever's paying the most to their content creators. Because it's no longer about chasing clicks and likes and followers. It's about chasing dollar bills, y'all. And if TikTok if my friend is making $1,000 a day selling lipstick on TikTok, see you later, Instagram, because I'm going over to where my friend's making $1,000 a day.
Tyler, we got to watch Selling Ourselves on Tinder, I think, right? Make it into a sketchy space.
And I just got a picture on my eyes with Tyler with lipstick. So thank you.
Oh man!
Just to add up, remember how we were talking in the previous group about how people are very particular about their data, privacy, data, and everything else. Consumers are becoming so aware of this thing. I just came into this article right now. So DataC is a startup which just got a fundraising of 2.4 million, where end users can sell their data.
Interesting. What's the source?
And they get an 85% revenue out of the selling, whereas Delicacy takes 15%. DataC takes 15% of the revenue.
Okay. What's the source and what's the headline?
TechCrunch, and I'll just tweet the article so you can just look at it.
And I'll retweet it. Katerina just found something that this is getting weird, man. First, May finds Apple going into crypto, and now Katerina finds an article that Tesla is going into yachts. Model Y Tesla yacht. What we know. And it says Tesla is all about innovation with the massive changes they've made to the automotive space and space industries. Tesla hasn't really done that much in space. They're confusing it with SpaceX, I think. So already I'm a little worried about whoever wrote this article. But they could have missed out on ocean exploration. At the end of 2017, Tesla announced the yacht project Model Y. Did they? I must have missed that one.
Actually, my son found it because I always said I want the Cybertruck to have a feature that it can float in the water if a hurricane will come again here to New York City.
Yeah, the people,
because it's already bulletproof and everything.
Yeah.
And they're supposedly working on that too, that the Cybertruck's supposed to float in the water at some point.
Yeah, the source of this article sounds questionable. It's called yachtharbor.com. The title is Model Y Tesla Yacht, What We Know. And there's
only the finest sources, right,
yes.
Tyler?
And then, well, I'm going to tweet it with a big BS question mark.
Tyler, I did see a Twitter post. I did see a Twitter post last night, sometime around like midnight, where it completely. I don't know if this is a joke or not, which is hilarious to me because I saw someone describe this exactly in a Twitter post. I wish I could find it, but it's. I wasn't sure if it was related, but this isn't the first time I've actually heard of this. I've seen someone mention this kind of narrative that the meeting with the Bitcoin miners was in fact just a way to get them yachts.
And I saw a post where if you responded with your personal information, that Elon Musk would give you a Bitcoin on Twitter.
That was, yes, the infamous. Yeah, we got to be.
I remember that scam.
Yep. So, although back to the social Facebook, Instagram, and about people are no longer chasing likes and followers, and instead will be chasing dollars. An article from TechCrunch right now. The headline is: Facebook and Instagram now give users options to hide the like counts across all posts and to hide their own public like counts from others. Facebook this week will begin publicly. Wow, they did a typo. Facebook this week will begin publicly rolling out the option to hide likes on posts across both Facebook and Instagram following earlier tests in 2019. The amazing thing is all the publications that are covering this, from TechCrunch, BBC, Economic Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, CNET, Engadget, The Verge, Bloomberg, Good Morning America, and the New York Times. Why that's says something, does it not? That every major publication in the Western world is covering the fact that Facebook and Instagram is. Michelle, you have a thought on this one?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, I think it wasn't widely shared, but it's been a while that likes are now becoming what we call vanity metrics, including followers. But I think the perception of those numbers are still is still not accurate because it seems very important. But this particular change was done mainly because those metrics have been affecting people's mental health, especially the younger generation. So it's for people not to value their wealth on how much likes they have, so they can now hide it, and it doesn't really matter anymore. If you post a picture that doesn't have any likes, that doesn't define whether or not that picture has some added value or not. So that's kind of where this is coming from.
Interesting.
Michelin, just a follow-up question on your prediction. So I know for a fact that, I mean, I may be wrong in the initial assumption for now. So I know for the fact that the Instagram uses the search, like, I mean, the metrics of likes and comments as a understanding of how popular the post is, right? And then it goes to the explore page. That's how the algorithm works, I'm assuming. If it's changed, I'm not sure about it. But if they remove the entire agenda of likes and followers and such, how does the prediction algorithm work there? I'm just curious about it.
The reality is that it's never been, well, not anymore since a couple of years, it's never been the number of followers or likes, but it's the percentage. So even if you have 50 followers and you have 3% of engagement rate, that's what's matter, because we assume that if people engage with that content, it means it has some value to them. If that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
So sorry, guys. I don't know if you if I missed it, probably you already spoke about this. So I got a message yesterday from one of the guys, who in Instagram, people who sell likes and followers, right? So they say that apparently Instagram last few days introduced this thing that they're going to hide likes from other people. So basically, which they did last year, 1 year ago, right? 12 months ago, they did that, and then I think they brought it back about 6 months ago. Now again, apparently they're going to hide likes from Instagram post. So yeah, that's something that I found out yesterday.
I think that's
It
the
was
article
actually
we were just talking about. Yeah.
it was I don't know if anybody remembers. It was like several months ago where they said it was a bug. I'm curious if I don't know if Michelle could speak to it, but it seems like I initially thought that was like a test to see how the people would react or with that when Instagram likes for some people went away.
Yep.
Yeah,
Was
that
that a
one,
bug?
that was initial. I mean, it was a test that was rolled out to a very limited number of users because we wanted to grasp the sentiment at a broader scale. And once we have it now, it's an option because the initial scenario was not to give the option and just hide it. But now either they can show their likes or they can hide it. So that's there will be two options.
So Cheryl just found a very interesting article about the big tech giants in China, namely JD, Meituan, and Neolix, are testing autonomous deliveries on Beijing's public roads. And now we're seeing, and by the way, the photos in this one are the clearest I've seen, and it now seems very legit. We've seen this a few times before. I'm tweeting this out from the Twitter account. You can see it with your own eyes. This truly looks like the future in a very big way. It shows these very new style of vehicles. It looks like a very small car with no driver. It's a driving robot. It's like a big robot with wheels. It looks like, yeah, they're these micro cars, like smart cars with no drivers. And this article reads that people in Beijing suburb will begin to see autonomous delivery minivans across their neighborhood, moving cautiously alongside human delivery riders. Beijing has green-lighted this, that JD, Meituan, and Neolix, which are three big tech companies, to trial self-driving delivery vehicles on designated public roads in the Yizhuang development area, an economic and technological growth pilot initiated by the municipal government of the capital city, according to the announcement made by local authorities at a mobile conference on Tuesday, which was yesterday. Yizhuan has aggressively rolled out 5G coverage, in part to prepare the infrastructure for autonomous driving ventures. All three companies are using dainty box-on-wheels vehicles similar to those the 3-year-old Neolix, backed by Chinese electric vehicle startup Li Auto, focused on making self-driving vehicles for retail. You really have to see these vehicles. These are definitely real. There's too many photos of these now on Beijing's roads. They're clearly not photoshopped. And they're selling things. These autonomous vehicles are basically, we've seen some where it's actually a KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, that is put into a little vehicle. And it's, you know how we have food trucks in America, where it's like a little kitchen in a truck, and those trucks drive around Los Angeles and wherever else, and they pull up, and people, there's humans inside the truck who cook the food for you, and you buy food from food trucks, right? Everyone's familiar with that. Well, imagine that without the people and without the kitchen, but just the food ready to purchase. So it's KFC food packed into a little autonomous driving mini van. And the minivan drives around somehow. I guess it's being robotically controlled by somebody. I think it's more of a drone, because I don't know how this vehicle would know exactly where to go. There's clearly cameras on the front of it and on the side of it and all around it. But take a look at these things, because I can imagine these things will be coming to the U.S. before long as a form factor.
Isn't Domino's doing a pilot version of this right now, Tyler?
But Tyler, we talked about that, right? So the Nuno have launched. I think it was a couple of months ago. We talked about in Texas. They had a Domino pizza delivery, right?
You're exactly right.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
And then let me just speak.
You're right. It was about a month ago. We had this nearly identical vehicle selling and designed and branded as a Domino's pizza delivery vehicle. and people could walk up to this thing, and the door opens on the side, and bada boom, bada bing, here's your pizza.
If you PTR my picture, you'll see that exactly this.
Let's see here.
Amazon's been working on one too for quite a while. Amazon hired me probably, I want to say about, it had to be 9 months ago now, and I did some concept art, created a couple of billboard ads for them. There's exactly these little drones that'll be these little road drones that'll be delivering packages to people in their neighborhoods, just like the Domino's Pizza one.
Yeah, and Cheryl just found another one from Japan that I'm tweeting out as well in 2 seconds. So these are clearly starting to go international. And
then Japan already tested it January this year.
Yeah, but you'll see the Japanese one. They're very, very similar. Yeah, this is certainly a look at something to come, no doubt. Justin, you just sent an article here about Brussels to big tech. You want to share that?
Yes, I would love to. I got to jump for a work call in 5 minutes so I don't get fired. But in the meantime, we have a pretty big headline. At least I think it's a big headline. Surprised that it hasn't been discussed yet. Brussels to big tech. Open up your algorithms or else. So essentially, the European Union Commission is expected to demand that Facebook, Google, and Twitter alter their algorithms and prove they have done so to stop the spread of online falsehoods, according to 3 people briefed. So this is really the first time and the most, if this comes to fruition, which we should find out shortly, these measures would mark the furthest any country or region has gone in forcing tech companies to disclose the inner workings of their algorithms used to populate social media feeds. So for everybody out there, the social dilemma kind of goes into this, and it's really why I have nothing but disdain for a company like Facebook, which I think is the most responsible for the breakdown of our information ecosystem here in the United States and largely across the world, in that they create algorithms which prioritize content that is essentially liked and shared the most within certain shared information ecosystems. So essentially what happens is the content that is the most vitriolic, and Facebook does a horrible job of moderating this content, will get the most likes, and it will be prioritized in their algorithm according to this social dilemma and the EU regulators. And this is really the first step at trying to force some transparency behind the wall right here, with the regulator saying, hey, you gotta at least cut this out when the information is disinformation or misinformation, which essentially is 2 different characterizations of false information. It's really important to understand this. Disinformation is false information that is spread on purpose with an agenda. So think of Russian troll farms. Misinformation instead is again bad information that's not true, but it's shared by your grandmother because they think it's true, or your friend because they think it's true. So what these regulators are saying is, hey, Facebook, open up the wall, show us this algorithm, change this algorithm, and then again, show us that the algorithm has been changed to cut down on mis and disinformation. I think that this is a beautiful thing. And that's kind of my takeaway from this.
Yes, thank you, Justin. And what's your Twitter account, by the way?
Oh, yes, I need to set up one.
Okay.
But my Twitter account for me personally is Justin_Higgins.
Okay.
2.
And by the way, everybody, please follow Justin, who hosts the best rooms in Clubhouse on all things political. And he has members of Congress joining him here in Clubhouse, which is, we all owe, we're all in a debt of gratitude to Justin for building a bridge between Clubhouse and Washington, D.C., where he happens to be geographically and professionally. And that's a huge opportunity, and we need to support him with our feet in his rooms so that when he sends his invites to members of Congress, they show up and engage with the Clubhouse audience. It's critically important. Please do follow him. Please join his rooms, and please tweet out his rooms when you enter his rooms, so that when the midterm elections are coming up, that the candidates will join us here in Clubhouse in Justin's room, which he is perfectly qualified. I can't think of anyone better to moderate those conversations, as evidenced by the fact that he, a week ago, hosted what many people are saying is the best room to ever happen in Clubhouse on the topic of Palestinians and Israelis. I'm still inspired by that room, by the way, a week after the fact.
Tyler, you're making this 30-year-old man blush.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it.
No, but it's legit. So
I just want to thank you, and then real quick, sorry to interrupt you, say that 3 hours before Tech News Around the World starts, my room is now doing political news around the world, and we'll touch a little bit on tech news. We'll leave that for Tyler, but we'll run up until maybe an hour before Tech News Around the World starts. Hopefully there'll be some type of lead-in that we can then collaborate on. But in addition to that, breaking news. I've been trying to get some more tech journalists on the show, Tyler.
I was about to break the news myself, because Justin just shared with me his upcoming rooms, and he's got journalists from every major publication you can think of are going to be joining him in his rooms, which, by the way, this is great. And because when you listen to the town hall meeting, the last one and the one before, Paul from Clubhouse himself is excited about, these top tier journalists now coming into Clubhouse. Well, guess which room they're going into? Justin's room. So again, follow Justin and get in his rooms and support them, because it's the future of Clubhouse and nothing short of that.
I got to run to this call, Tyler. Thank you for the plug. But we also got a commitment from David Sanger, who is one of the biggest journalists in cybersecurity at the New York Times. So I got to run. I'll be back to listen to this fantastic show. Love your audience.
Thanks.
Second smartest on Clubhouse to mine.
All right. Well, we'll beat you next time. So to Jonathan, you just shared a good article about Tencent. You want to share it?
Yeah, it's just mainly that Tencent is coming under political pressure to separate its financial activities into a holding company that can be overseen by the state in the same way that Ant was forced to do. Yeah.
So it's the trend is continuing amongst the biggest of the biggest Chinese tech giants, where they are being forced to reshape themselves by the whims of the state. I have to imagine against their own will. And the state just continues to exert its control and force the companies just to fundamentally restructure themselves, even financially, and creating holding companies that remove their own power over their own companies, essentially, financially. It's wild. It's true. I mean, you could never do that in America in a million years, but it's just amazing to see how much power the state has there over these tech giants.
Tyler.
Yes.
Oh, I just wanted to say one on the next topic. I had a headline I wanted to. Yeah, so I just retweeted it on Tech News. So Justin kind of segued off about cybersecurity, and so couple platforms, CNN, and I apologize if we discussed this in the room maybe yesterday. I don't remember hearing about it, but basically.
Did we just lose her?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Ground control.
Are you there, Amanda?
I think we lost her.
Amanda?
I think we lost her. Brendan, you have something?
Amanda.
Oh no, just wondering if she's
ground control.
No, she's not on the stage anymore.
Oh.
In the interim, do
there she
we
is.
want to?
She's back.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
we can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, maybe I was being silenced by the powers that be, so let me know if you can't hear me again. So, because I was calling out Walmart and their security features, because basically somebody, I don't know that I want to call it a hack, because quite honestly, you don't need any tech background to do this, but they got a hold of basically setting up fake accounts for email addresses that are valid. So for example, I could take like Michael's or Tyler's email address, set up an account, set up a racial like slur as your name or something, and they had emails sent out from Walmart with these racial slurs as their names and different information. So yeah, that was all over. I don't know if we covered that, but that's pretty powerful. I retweeted that.
How many minutes ago did you tweet it?
I just retweeted it again, maybe not even 5 minutes ago before we discussed it again, but let me know if you still can't see it. I'll DM it to you, Tyler. But yeah, that's pretty big news, because here we go again. Sorry, background noise. But Twitter, with this whole cropping feature and racial bias, now we have Walmart sending out these racially, slur emails.
Please try it again and make sure you send it to TNATW.
Yeah, I'll retweet it again now. Okay. Yeah, because that's a pretty powerful story.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll do.
All right. Yeah, wild. So thank you, Amanda. There's a bunch. People are sending all kinds of fantastic articles. Sarah is sending again that Amazon bought the MGM Studios for $8.45 billion. So retweeting that one, we covered that. And thank you to Cheryl. And then Heyman found our favorite story from earlier today, 7 hours ago, and I'm retweeting it now, about smart toilets that can scan poop to gauge your bowel health. And as our friend Michael on stage said, this is the good shit.
That's that good shit right there.
That's that good shit right here. And it's a smart toilet. So you've got a smart phone, you've got a smart home, and maybe a smart office, and you might even live in a smart city. And now you've got a smart toilet in your house, which, by the way, it works with any toilet. You don't even have to change the toilet. That's the smartest thing about it, is it fits around your pipes. And this smart toilet that I just retweeted, thank you, Heyman. And Heyman has a really interesting fascination with fecal matter. For it just, I don't know what it is, but it comes up a little too often, Heyman. But he is a doctor. So researchers are developing an artificial intelligence tool for toilets that could help analyze the patient's stools. The technology could give gastroenterologists the information they need to provide appropriate treatment for chronic issues such as inflammatory bowel disease and irritable bowel syndrome. It's coming from Duke University and Stanford University, and it's already proving to be incredibly accurate at detecting blood and stool samples, et cetera, et cetera. And it fits right into the fact that Amazon and others are getting into the health space, and health is becoming digitized. And the question is, whose shitty data is it? Is it yours or Amazon's? Who controls your poop
this
data?
This is going to get worse.
Yeah. Whose shit is it? Anyways, whose shit is this? And maybe as part of this...
Time to flush away the story.
Whose shit is this?
This was first discovered. This was first discovered to actually help with detection of coronavirus epidemic. So it was discovered in Italy, and then very, very early on, and they discovered that analysis of sewage can actually say, from an epidemiological point of
That's
view,
right,
where the areas of contagion might happen. And the UK has really taken this on board, and something like about 60 to 70% of its sewage is now tested for coronavirus.
That's exactly
Well,
right.
ain't that some shit? Ain't that some shit right there?
Oh, but the issue about smart toilets is very interesting. I mean, all of the sensors that are coming. And by the way, somebody sent me an article today. I need to find it. That Google is here. It is right here. Right, boom. Here it is. Wall Street Journal. Google partners with U.S. hospital chain HCA Healthcare to develop algorithms to improve operating efficiency, monitoring of patients, and guide doctors' decisions. Tech giant expands health sector presence in latest deal to develop tools to improve medical care as privacy concerns arise, because they're checking out your shit. They're all up in your shit.
We're back to that again.
Well, it says in the story, tech giants expand health sector presence.
Why are you all up in my shit?
Yeah.
You always all up in my shit. The laugh is so real. Oh my God.
By the
Not the
way,
Eve's laugh.
It's the second time you've had the giggles like that. That's the second
by the
time.
way, the Japanese toilets are already checking the condition of our waste since 2009.
That shit is crazy.
But anyway, the AI is a integration. I have it at home, by the way. One banana a day.
Somebody needs to come up with a new headline.
Yeah,
to move us
sorry.
on.
But the privacy concerns around the data is very, very real.
Don't touch my shit.
Yes.
That's so funny.
Oh,
can we move on from this?
I'm
shit?
sorry.
Shits and giggles.
Yes, but Google's getting into the health tech game, as is Amazon, because it's a huge space, and there's just a shitload of opportunity in the healthcare space, apparently. But oh Jesus,
Ain't that some shit?
yeah, there's going to be the blood testing, the urine testing, the stool sampling, the smart toilet. I used to joke about the smart toilet, 6 weeks ago, and here it is, right? So, let's see how fast this all unfolds, because I can imagine in the near future you'll be your toilet will tell you need to schedule a call with a doctor, while you're sitting on your phone on your toilet, looking at YouTube, and now your toilet's telling you should initiate a call from your doctor in real time to talk about the bowel movement that you just had, and it might be able to test both your stool and your urine. It can detect blood in there, and no doubt the amount of data that it will be able to detect, and the sensors built into these things, and the amount of kind of miniature lab in your toilet, it's gonna get very, very interesting very quickly. And
Tyler.
go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah, this is Shirley. So, last week we were speaking about black mold,
Yes.
mycotoxins and stuff, and we related this to coronavirus. Now, we all know that coronavirus is not going anywhere. So, as and when people start using or abusing antibiotics, we talked about this, cancers, people who are, let's say, immunosuppressed, it could be really important for them. So, you get early warning signals to help prevent the progression of certain diseases. So I think that's really cool. Obviously, ownership is a factor that needs to be resolved. But otherwise, for the patient, I think monitoring and diagnostics, I think this is a really great thing.
Very cool. So, more anyone on stage something to share? I have a ton in my feed. I just want to make sure everyone on stage has a chance to jump in. And we got a bunch of people.
I had one thing.
Go ahead, Tina.
So, this is from, and it's more of a question, but as well as an observation. Are we aware that Microsoft has a major event that they've been holding for the last 2 days?
No, not so much.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
So Microsoft Build, it's a major their annual developer event.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Just wanted to mention, because I know that we've been following Apple and Google and everybody else.
Yes.
I don't know if there's necessarily anything major that's coming out of it, but
I
just thought it was interesting.
Actually, there is. Gates? Yeah. No, the headline from Microsoft lately was that Satya, the CEO, made a video this morning where he talks about he's more excited than ever about all the opportunities for builders and their own, what they call creatives or developers on Windows, because he reminds everyone that there's more than 1 billion Windows devices. And he thinks it's the best time ever to be building. He thinks their platform is the platform where you can have the most economic opportunity, as he put it in his video. But you bring up a really interesting point, which is, as developers, developers are a sort of type of creative. They're creating software. And some of them, every app you use, is made by developers who are, in essence, a type of creative. And creatives, developers, have a choice of which platforms to build on. You can build on Windows platform or on Facebook's. You can build an app on top of Facebook. You can build an app for the iPhone and build on Apple's platform. And each of these platforms are competing for these creatives, and have for a very long time. And famously, Steve Ballmer of Microsoft stood on stage and screamed, developers, 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 because he knew that that's the business they are in, is competing with Apple and other platforms for the developers. In the same way, we were just talking about how Instagram is going to compete with TikTok and YouTube, who is very literally paying TikTok creatives to leave TikTok to come to their platform, because the future is more than software developers, it's social media influencers. And which platform is going to have the most of the influencers, because that's who's going to drive the social shopping commerce phenomena of the future. But to another interesting aspect to the point that you're making is Microsoft is doing their big annual developer conference as we speak. We are not doing a live stream about it in the same way that we just did Google's event 2 weeks ago, the same way we're going to do Facebook's event on June 2nd in a few days, and Apple's huge event. And so to your point, you're right. It is kind of an interesting note that people aren't as interested in Microsoft's annual build event like they are Apple's and Facebook's and Google's.
I
It is a
think,
little
to
more
be honest
niche.
with you, I think his divorce might have a little something to do with it. Like, I feel like all the news coverage that happened with his divorce, people are kind of just Microsoft out right now.
Well, there is an interesting headline that's coming out as a kind of side note to the event, which is the USB standard. Which started out with the USB plugs and now has evolved into
Right.
USB-C is the new standard. And the wonderful, beautiful, genius innovation that took them a decade to figure out is you should be able to use the cable and upside down in either direction with USB-C. Well,
Genius.
yeah, what a genius! It only took a decade, and the USB-C standard is now being upgraded to 2.1. And what is special about USB-C 2.1? Well, I'm glad you asked. USB-C 2.1 is now going to support power upgrades up to 240 watts, which previously it was 100 watts, and is aimed to now be able to support many more powerful devices like the new 4K display monitors and the very powerful gaming laptops, so that you can, because most monitors are running, at 2K essentially, but the monitor resolutions are getting much higher. But for those much higher monitor resolutions, like 4K monitors, 8K monitors, which Apple released recently and everyone else is going to be releasing soon, you're going to need this new USB 2.1 format to power these much more data intensive and power intensive displays. So that's the new update coming out of that.
And cabled VR headsets as well.
Yes, the data stream between your VR headset and your desktop system will likely need to benefit from that as well. Very good point, Carl.
Microsoft could surprise us. They talked about possibly releasing or getting into the consumer side of their HoloLens. And then coming out of CNET, an article describes how they want to double down on Windows and how it's going to, I guess, reinvigorate and modernize its updated look. And this is probably going to be the biggest change, supposedly, according to this article, since the last update that they made their most dramatic change.
I'd be very surprised if they unveiled anything like that at the build, though. It's really, really, really niche and specifically focused around development.
Oh, this speaks to, by the way, the criticism that Steve Jobs always had about Microsoft to an extent, which is, they don't sell the sizzle. It's a bit dry and beige plastic boxes rather than neon transparent iMacs. And the amount of design and polish and presentation and salesmanship that Apple has always put into their events, because honestly their events are just fantastic to watch, even if you aren't a developer. Yeah. So this WWDC event that's coming up on June 7th with the keynote, I can promise you, if you watch it with us in the live stream, as we just did their other event, you will be stunned how the production level of this event, this virtual event, the camera movements are better than any Hollywood film you have ever seen. It's truly really groundbreaking level of production that they put into their events, and that's kind of one. It's hard for these other tech companies to even compete on this front. And we even made a comment during the Google developer event that, compared to the Apple events, it felt like somebody was streaming live from their backyard barbecue at the Google event. Which it did. That's what it felt like. Very literally, it felt like, is this in the CEO's backyard? At Google, where they're just these people are standing here, talking about the new. It was very low budget by comparison. It was not.
Yeah, it was.
Google
It definitely was.
Apple is reportedly spends upwards of $50 million for their 1 hour keynote presentation. That would be
Okay,
a
Tyler, I
I
want to
mean, they've
ask you
turned it
then.
into what they did is they kind of transcended the tech world, and they've turned their keynotes into an actual social event. Like it's an event that people genuinely look forward to, as if it was a movie premiere, and that they
Oh, it's
go
a
on to
hype
talk
drive.
about. So yeah, it's really, it's worth the money that they're spending into it, because that's clearly a big part of their edge.
Yeah, but to this,
Tyler, can I ask you, looking back
yeah,
on the two events now,
yep.
which in hindsight were you more excited about? Like, which did you enjoy more, taking into account both the production value and the information that was actually given across?
Apple and Google.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which one?
I would put them very equal, actually, in terms of. I might
Same.
even give the advantage to Google in terms of overall value.
Exactly the
Yeah,
same, slightly ahead, yeah.
yeah. Especially with the Lambda and some of the other things. The interesting thing is Apple spending $50 million on their 1 hour keynote production. That's half the budget of like an X-Men film. So for the same length of time. So you can imagine but by the way, the production value is every bit as high as like an X-Men film in these things that they're doing.
Exactly.
They're remarkable. They are works of art in themselves, and they hire the best of the best to do them. So do join us when we do watch the next Apple one on June 7th. I'm going to add it to the calendar shortly, and do join us for Facebook's event on June 2nd, which is just a few days away. And we'll be thrilled, of course, if Michelle's in the room to kind of help us unpack some of the questions that might come up. Of course, she won't be able to talk about a lot of it, but anything she says is always incredibly appreciated and valuable. And we're super excited to see what Facebook is going to announce, although hint, it's going to be social shopping, and it's going to be Shopify, and I'm going to click the buy button. I'm even going to buy Shopify stock an hour before the event because I'm not sure that they're going to announce Shopify during the event. But you can watch together with us to see if I'm wrong. And more headlines. Here's a new one. New York Times just came out a couple hours ago. An overview. New York Times, and coming from Reuters and Engadget, BBC, and CNBC, all reporting. And this is the headline of the New York Times: an overview of Russia's increasingly aggressive attempts to control Google, Facebook, and Twitter, ordering them to store data in Russia and imposing fines now. I will tweet this out, and let's go with the BBC one, because they're all covering this. Russia threatens to slow down Google over banned content. And then you've got the CNBC says Russia threatens to slow down Google for failing to delete prohibited content and issuing fines. And Gadget says Russia makes good on its threat to fine Google over illegal internet content. But by the way, it was interesting when we dug into the story in the previous time zone that Russia specifically named the thing that they feared was the ability to kind of destabilize and create narratives, that are destabilizing, which, by the way, is precisely what today Facebook's head of data security accused Russia of, was very explicitly that. And not once and not twice, but hundreds of times, where Russia is intentionally using Facebook in a weaponized way to destabilize and cause friction and division within the U.S. So a little rich for Russia to be claiming that they're now fining Google for doing the same, because it'd be very easy for them to block those services in Russia if they so choose. If they're able to slow down the services as they claim, and of course they are able to do that, then of course they could just pull the plug on them, which is quite likely to happen. San Jose approves Google's plans for a downtown campus with 4,000 new homes. This is interesting, folks. San Francisco Chronicle and others reporting in the Bay Area that San Jose, which is, by the way, everyone talks about the Bay Area, which stretches from San Francisco and the Bay Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, rather, all the way down to San Jose. And it actually takes about 2 hours to drive that whole distance. And that
Tyler,
yes.
Bay Area is far above the Golden Gate Bridge. It includes Marin, and it barely includes San Jose, I'm just going to say.
Okay.
Yep.
Now we're getting into locals debating where the borders of quote-unquote Silicon Valley are. But
Yep.
what I want to do, the point I'm trying to make is that San Jose is part of Silicon Valley, And I would even go below San Jose to where the origins of the silicon in the ground actually are, down there in Campbell, south of San Jose. So I'm counting San Jose because a lot of the employees who work at the big tech companies up in Sunnyvale and Mountain View, a lot of them live in San Jose. So my point is that the article, the headline today from the San Francisco Chronicle is as follows: San Jose approves Google's plans for a downtown campus with 4,000 new homes. Why is Google building homes? 7 million square feet of office space, 15 acres of parks, 50,000 of retail and other space. It sounds like they're building a city, and in fact, they are.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is
It's
huge.
something that's happening with all the. I've been noticing this. Microsoft is. I feel like all the big players are basically building their own little cities at this point.
Here it goes. This is big, and I can talk about this. I'm going to retweet it now so everyone can follow along if they want from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. But this is, mark my words, this is a big deal. And it will get more coverage.
If I can add
huge.
some historical data, at least in Europe, it used to be like that big companies like in even like soup companies, steel companies, and all these companies used to build their own little towns for their employees with
Correct.
all kinds of infrastructure and schools and everything.
It's a very good point.
I don't think
headline. Let's go through the headline and then do the discussion.
And here, Detroit to a degree as well, right? Sounds like someone turned into a robot. So the point I want to make here is, even in Stockholm, I have an example of the big generator company Atlas Copco built a small town outside of Stockholm called Sickla, which was recently purchased by friends of mine at a big real estate company and converted their little city campus into a new town, still with the name Sickla. And here is Google. Now this is super, super interesting. Hold on with us for the next 10 minutes here. I promise you it'll be worth it. And I happen to have personal, professional experience on this exact topic that very, very few people have. So here's what's going on. Google was building its own town outside of Toronto on the water. And that project was years in the making and more or less fell apart relatively recently. And they've essentially abandoned that massive project. And so it was always Google knows they need to build a city, actually. And so does Toyota. And Toyota is building a city outside of Tokyo near Mount Fuji. It's called the Woven City, where they have autonomous vehicles. And why do these huge tech companies feel the need to build their own cities? Well, you can imagine all of the data that would come from Google using all of their products and services across the whole Alphabet supply chain. They have drone companies, they have all of these data companies and sensor companies and the watch companies, and they have dozens and dozens of companies. That's why they changed the name to Alphabet, because they have a company for every letter of the alphabet now. So they need to build their own city to see what happens in the futuristic cities so they can figure out what the real monetizable opportunities are in the future 10 years from now, when data is flowing everywhere between your gym and your doctor and your supermarket and your toilet and your smart toilet. And all of this stuff gets digitized, because we're going from your phone became a smartphone. Your car is becoming a smart car. Your home's becoming a smart home. Your office is becoming a smart office. And your city's becoming a smart city. And they need to know what happens when a city becomes a smart city, because if you get a 10-year head start, then you get to set the tone and dictate the terms and understand the opportunities before everybody else, and provide the solutions and services and products for the futures of these smart cities. And next thing you know, you're controlling the world from a data platform perspective, right? So now you understand why Google really wants to build a city, which they tried to do in Toronto. It didn't work out. And now they're building it right next to their own global campus, which is in Mountain View. And they're building this just down the road from Mountain View in San Jose. Not coincidentally, because a lot of their employees already work in San Jose. So the headline from the San Francisco Chronicle is as I mentioned, Google's San Jose mega campus wins the city approval. Wow. After more than 3 years of negotiations, San Jose officials voted late Tuesday to approve Google's plans for a sprawling downtown campus with thousands of new homes, that Google will own all the data in those homes, millions of square feet of office space, and a first of its kind $200 million community benefit agreement. It's a deal that business, labor, and community groups say could signal a shift in Bay Area development politics, particularly as San Jose, long overshadowed by neighboring San Francisco, looks to rebound from the pandemic with more active public spaces near transit, but in a region long accustomed to isolation, suburban tech campuses, and big dollar affordable housing commitments, some still question how exactly a $155 million community fund will be spent and whether it will be enough to offset familiar concerns about gentrification, homelessness, and daily issues like parking. Well, don't you worry, San Jose. I'm sure Google has plans for all of those things, leveraging all of their fantastic innovations and technologies. But my point is Google understands the opportunity here. That's why they have working very hard to find a city where they could do a project like this. And all the other big tech companies, not all, but those who can, are going to do it as well. And guess what? I was trying to do this myself with the big Swedish tech companies like Ericsson, who creates 3G, 4G, 5G, Bluetooth, SMS, and every technology on your phone for the past 20 years came out of Stockholm by a company called Ericsson. So Ericsson and myself and Telia, the big tech company, and Amazon in the Nordics, and Uber in the Nordics, and many others, the big postal company called PostNord, and so amongst a few, were getting together every month. We had found a part of Stockholm that we were going to make into a smart city. And it was a part of Stockholm called the Meatpacking District, which in Swedish is called Slakthusområdet, which every Swede knows. And the Meatpacking District is actual meatpacking companies. It's not just a name. It literally is the Meatpacking District. However, it's now the size of Stockholm. Stockholm's the fastest growing city in Europe, by the way. And so they need to move those meatpacking companies further outside the city, and they want to redevelop the meatpacking district into a mixture of housing and retail and offices and schools. And so when I first arrived as a government contractor, advisor, or what's the word I'm looking for, consultant, I said, wow, this meatpacking district area is fantastic. And everyone said, no, that's just the meatpacking district. I said, well, that's where, to me, that's the future of the city. And that was 8 years ago when I first arrived. And then 2 years ago, they said, hey, Tyler, actually, we're going to redo the meatpacking district. We know you loved it when you arrived here 8 years ago. And I said, great. So all of my partners, and I produce the big tech event in Sweden every year. And all of those big brands I mentioned are my partners. And when I meet with them, and I said, guys, what is exciting to you this year? Which tech topics are exciting to you? Like VR, AR, AI, what have you, food, energy. They all said, you know what's interesting to us now is smart cities. I said, really? Smart cities? They said, yeah, that's the theme that we find exciting for our company in the future. I said, wow, that's interesting because the city of Stockholm is now planning to redevelop the meatpacking district. So why don't we, me, you guys are all the biggest companies in the Nordics. Why don't we go build an actual fucking smart city over there in the meatpacking district? And you know what they said? Let's do it. Fuck yeah, that sounds fantastic. That's awesome. So we started going over there and meeting there every month. And we had a 3-hour meeting every month, and the mayor would come, and we would sit there and be like, what's this smart city going to look like and feel like and smell like? And the city would bring in all the future maps of what they had planned for the new metro tunnel that's going to come in and where the parks are going to be and how much they've determined you need to have this amount of retail and this amount of residential and this amount of office, and there needs to be a school and yada, yada. Yeah, no problem. We'll build all that. And we were getting all excited and everything was fantastic. And then the big real estate companies started coming to these monthly meetings because every month we'd say, okay, who needs to be at the next monthly meeting? And we'd say, let's bring in this huge real estate company so that they can be part of it. And the big real estate companies started coming in. And so after about 6 or 7 meetings, we wake up one day to a headline in the newspaper that one of the big real estate companies who was attending these meetings bought the entire meatpacking district of 8. It's just to give you some scale. It's about 5 city blocks by 8 city blocks. So it's about 40 blocks, right? And every block has about 4 buildings on it. So this company called Atrium Bloomsbury bought the entire meatpacking district. And that was just before COVID. So to be continued, as they say. Atrium Bloomsbury has their own plans now for the meatpacking district. And they've asked me to help them make it, a tech city and dress it, put the icing on the cake in the form of a futuristic tech city. But all of the partners previously, WeWork was another one, we're all excited about how we were going to all contribute and collaborate together to make the futuristic smart city, because our vision in Sweden was, if we start building this, then we can start to market Sweden as the future smart city project, and start inviting in everybody from around the world who wants to work and collaborate in this big sandbox project, of a smart city development where we could test and the government would loosen up all the restrictions that you normally have around autonomous vehicles and drone deliveries and data sharing and etc. It would be our own little sandbox. So that's a bunch of there's other places doing this, by the way, outside of Saudi Arabia, up near Israel and Egypt. Saudi Arabia has created an autonomous region they call NEOM, where they've contributed $5 billion to that project. And that was going along fine until a journalist named Khashoggi went into the Saudi Arabian embassy to get some papers for his wedding permit, and he never came out of the embassy, as you well know. So people are afraid to participate in the Saudi Arabia project, and that kind of got shelved. So, but the point is that there will be these huge, wildly ambitious smart city projects, and apparently San Jose just greenlit Google's very ambitious smart city project outside of their campus there in San Jose. So it will be very interesting to see what kind of innovations and data happens between the homes. These are going to be Google-owned apartments, and I imagine they will be surprisingly affordable, because you're going to be paying for that home with your data in some part. And there will be autonomous vehicles driving you from your home to your Google campus. I guarantee you that. And the little town will be probably the first little area where you're going to have lots of autonomous vehicles and drone deliveries and data sharing between you and your building and the deliveries you're receiving, and your supermarket and your gym and your doctor and your school will be sharing all kinds of data. And you're going to have an app on your phone that gives you permission to turn on the data. Your doctor is asking for data from your gym. Okay, fine. Click on. Okay, now this other source is asking for data from this other source. Okay, click on. And, that's the data essentially. To make a phone smart, you add in chips and data. And to make a car smart, you add in chips and data. And to make a home smart, you add in, chips and data. And to make a city smart, guess what? So you're basically adding in the data layers that have not really been done anywhere yet. And that's why Google and others are interested in doing this.
Tyler, do you think
Tyler, is that what it says? Yeah, the opt-in there is going to be crazy, and it's also to say that it's within that city, like if they say it's downtown San Jose, so it's a few blocks, right? I mean, it's a big space, but it's within an existing city. So like your gym and your doctor and stuff aren't in that little paradigm.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other ways to connect, but it seems more of what they're doing is possibly the autonomous cars that you're saying, and the drones, and then activities within the home, because they like to, of course, they want to market to you. So they're going to have enhanced stuff there. But I can look at the article, but does it say that you're actually going to be giving up all that data by living there?
No.
I would think
Jennifer,
it's also California.
I imagine based on what Tyler said, the opt-in would be based on the fact that you get a cheaper house, right? So that's the sign-in.
You're going to sign up for it the same way that you sign up for software. You're just going to click I agree. You're going to see a home, and the home is going to be half the price of a normal home. Just click I agree. Okay, fine. And next thing you know,
California,
next thing
you
have
some of the strictest data privacy. I mean, that's
But you just clicked the agree button, and next thing you know, your smart toilet is all up in your ass, sharing your shitty data with your doctor.
Tyler, this reminds me a little bit of a modern version of feudalism that was already there in the Middle Ages in Europe.
Hi. So it's probably similar to what Stanford University has done although they've been in the Bay Area for 100+ years. But if you look at what they've done, anyone who lives on campus or on property, which I'm not sure if anybody's aware of this, but Stanford University owns a considerable amount of property that extends from, I think, El Camino Real all the way up into the foothills, and anyone who lives on their property gets to own the home but not the land. So that may be a similar structure property wise to what Google's going to be doing. Like, you'll own the home but not actually the land. So it's like a 99-year lease kind of structure to owning whatever it is that you're going to buy.
Tina, that is recently a popular actually a concept within Europe since the last crisis. So you have a choice of whether buying the land or just the home. But Tyler, I wanted to add something on your smart city concept. So I worked approximately 2 years in that concept because I was working at NG, and we participated in multiple smart city related concepts. Unfortunately, I can't just say one thing. It's never going to be a success because it's so difficult and complex between the consortiums. Also, when you look at from construction companies' point of view, their margin is extremely low. They barely make money, and they have to survive, and they survive with all the consortiums and the subsidies and grants mainly. So there is a lot being spoken and discussed, but unfortunately, there aren't many successful examples.
Right.
I
So,
don't
Hi.
think Google. I don't think
You
this is.
sound like an
Oh,
AI.
ladies first. Go on.
Yep.
Sorry.
Well, the
It's
issue.
Suzanne. I'm going to just jump in here because I was with Sun, and it's the concept, if you build a campus, they will come. And the problem within the Bay Area, you can build the great campuses, which have the restaurants and the gyms, and it's basically a world in itself, right? You'll build the campus, they will come, they will work from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. But the problem within the Bay Area, what happened, and by the way, the Bay Area starts from San Francisco down to San Jose. Don't let Jennifer tell you otherwise. Um, but in Silicon Valley, the people can't afford a house. They can't afford a house to live. So, for instance, when I worked for
But Suze,
Sun,
this is a smart city. That's what they're talking about here. Is that this is going
yes,
to
well,
have
what they're
housing.
doing, they're building now, instead of just a campus, they're building a city within a city. It will be a Google city. They aren't going to get your data. They don't care about your data when you go potty, to be honest. What they care about is how many hours are you working, and are you going to be working for them? And if they build that city within the city, which they've done, they've bought up all the land, right? So they've gone into homeowners and they've said, hey, your house that's worth $1.4 million, we'll give you 1.8 for it, because they have the money. They need the people, right?
Yep,
They
that's
need to
exactly the
attract the
point.
people.
So
I
hi, this
really
is
And
don't.
I'm done
Elle.
speaking.
Can I
Hi,
sort of jump in
hi,
here?
Carl.
Go
This is
ahead. Yeah.
Elle. I currently work in the smart city realm, more so for on the public safety side, trying to do the Internet of Things and connecting things back to the network. So the issue with Google, just as what's her name, as Susan just brought up, the problem is they're trying to build within structures that are already known, and they don't build to the ideal person. They don't build to how people live. That's the problem with a lot of our passionate technical people. They build based upon their own thoughts and what they think people want, instead of going in there doing a true assessment. Part of what I do is I do an assessment before I go in, mostly with the public safety, to see, to gauge their tolerance for the new technology that's going to be in place, to make sure that they'll be able to use it, to make sure that the profit margins and are the return on investment will be there. I've implemented license plate readers, video surveillance, and other things to make sure not only that the police will be utilizing this technology, but to also make sure that the citizens will be comfortable with the use of it, and to show them the benefits of taking their tax dollars and putting it into that. Google, on the other hand, just go in and build. They already have a failed city, actually, in Toronto, right in
Yep.
Toronto. They have a failed city. That's because they go in there and it's narcissistic, and they talk to some of the council people who are literally only doing this so they can get real share. They have plans to, I don't know.
Sounds like we're losing you.